It would be really great just to get some thoughts from your discussions. If they ended up not being about hosting a discussion or dialoguing with your MP, no problem. This was just your time to interact and discuss all that you've heard, as well as specifically this idea of rethinking security. So we've got 10 minutes. I'm not sure we'll be able to hear from every group, but if anybody would like to stick up their hand, there's a roving mic or two, and just share any thoughts or feedback from your discussions. There's one hand over here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so one here, and then one there, okay.
So the first thing we said was we wanted to do one because we think one comes before mid-dialogue with decision makers, and the suggestion was campaign on a single issue, for example a community peace garden, have someone who knows about the issue to talk, have a meeting to discuss it, give a person a lead role, and then go to your MP or go for publicity.
Yeah, I think that inclusion of other voices before bringing it to decision makers is, yeah, a really good way of looking at it. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Alex from Chips, and I live and work in Brixton in South London. And so we were talking about kind of number 2 of dialoguing with decision makers and what it was that we would dialogue about. And right now, we work in a community where the police force, which is supposed to bring safety, isn't recognised as that by our community. But we have specific police officers who have done an incredible amount of work to make sure that they are trusted, but they're potentially about to be defunded. And so for us right now, we've asked them who we can talk to. How do we make sure that their team that is about community engagement remains? And so for us, that would be our priority.
Thank you.
We had a bit of a mixed group, but the prior problem is about communication itself. That we don't feel we have much communication or much control over how we communicate. In the question, we didn't specify whether it was face-to-face or online. Face-to-face has problems of security, for example, for MPs who are under constant threats. And online has problems about who is controlling WhatsApp groups and whether our agenda can get on. So there are prior issues about how we perhaps get back to a better level of communication, which we may have had once before, which we may not have now.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's one over there, and then down the front here as well. Green t-shirt.
I think we need to broaden out the dialogue, not just within MPs. I think we need to include decision makers at a wider level, those who have input into policy making, and influence at the level of civil society. So I would include bishops. I think we as religious people of faith, let's put it that way, different churches, we need to lobby a lot more our decision makers within our churches. It's sad at times that many of our authority figures or leaders, and especially the Catholic ones, are absent. They seem to be very fearful, timid, weak is probably the most charitable term. I think also we would need
confused, maybe?
Confused. We would need to dialogue also with, I think, some academics in sociology, people in that whole field of sociology and political science. And with regard to climate, I would like to see us as people of faith dialoguing with some excellent climate scientists in this UK, this country. We have excellent ones who would put many of us to shame. I'm thinking particularly of Kevin Anderson from Manchester University and also Uppsala, Sweden. He hasn't flown since 2004. He goes everywhere on a bicycle or a train because of his own personal witness, personal commitment. And it's a shame we don't have some of those kind of people. We always think in these events we're going to have a church person, Rowan Williams or some bishop or some well-known figure within the churches. Why not have a scientist or a sociologist or a political scientist? Maybe we had in the past, but we need to broaden the dialogue and especially put pressure on our own bishops.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'm half of the Hexham Newcastle Diocese Justice and Peace Group, the other half. So for our half, we decided that it was about bringing discussion to decision makers, and there is a diocesan day about preparation for mission for the whole diocese in September. So we have decided that very much we're going to take the issue of peace to that agenda and see if we can get it incorporated in all of the strategies of the diocese for mission for the future.
Thank you. It's very practical.
Well, just following up on the, not that point, but previous point, we were talking particularly about, we started talking about MPs, but then it was sort of like, well, there were other decision makers, and we were talking about banks that were involved in, so firms that were manufacturing armaments, and then, we touched on the point that, in where these firms are operating, obviously local people are dependent on them for employment, so it just seemed to be that it got wider and wider. But that we automatically sort of think MPs are our decision makers, but they may not be the main decision makers.
Thank you.
So we also talked about the importance of what I call finding your tribe. In other words, connecting with other groups who are motivated as well, because more voices are better.
Hi. Hello, I'm Jude. We went with option one, and we have a very diverse group here, just like London. So we didn't decide on what to. We basically had a conversation within ourselves, and we focused on national security, and we believe there's so many elements to national security, but we focused on immigration, and we dabbled on legal and illegal immigration, and the safeguarding around it, and also the attitude of citizens or maybe legal immigrants towards illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. And sometimes, from my perspective and from some of the people in the group, I think some of the aspects of the annoyance or frustration could be the assumption that illegal immigrants just come into this country and freeload, but they don't get the opportunity to actually exercise themselves or exercise their knowledge. Because I feel if an immigrant or asylum seeker comes into this country and is propagated and conditioned into the country to understand what they could offer in terms of their skill sets from their country or from wherever they come from, and what they could offer this country. So maybe we should make the laws fair and a bit more balanced, because if they're already here, they're trying to assimilate and also make this place a better place. So that's where our conversation ended. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think immigration policy is designed for insecurity, and that needs to change. Was there another hand? Maybe we've got time for like one more, final comment.
We came together as a group of religious and with a couple of friends as well. We decided that, a bit like one person over there said, that as religious we've got privilege that we could maybe have a voice if we spoke together as one rather than individual congregations. So we decided that we would possibly start a Zoom group to begin with, and then have discussions starting with the gospel. What did Jesus do? What did Jesus say? And following on from that, that could maybe possibly lead to a statement that as religious together we're putting out to bishops, and possibly even go as far as just maybe lobbying lots of, maybe not just your MPs, but straight to the Defence Secretary. Why not the MP? Why not the MI? But we felt together that we could come together with it and create a bigger voice, and then maybe ripple down into parishes, associates, other groups associated with us as religious, and maybe into schools as well. Oh, sorry, and I forgot to say that we were going to maybe have a possibility of focusing on the season of creation, and the theme for this year is peace.
Wow, thank you. That was a lot. Very practical.
Can I just say, I think democracy is an illusion because of the whip and the first past the post voting system.
Yeah, that's another area of human security that the UN discusses, like our political security and our democratic security. And a lot of people would argue in this country, really we don't have much of that. It is quite illusional. So thank you. Is that, one very final.
We focused on the first one, and the question was, is it for sort of secular groups or within the church community, and maybe the importance of having the focus. So the immediate focus was on the questions of just defence, which are taxing us locally in our Liverpool Pax Christi group. And we recognise that if we are open to people and really listening, we might not like what they say. So we have to have this real listening. We also need maybe to have good resources in order to run groups. And I'm adding this myself, some kind of strategy for sharing what comes out of it, because otherwise it can all just be very fragmented and it's very easy to lose heart.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everyone for your contributions and for just engaging in discussion with each other. I think sounds like it's been helpful and lots of interesting ideas come out of it. And if you're interested, do check out rethinkingsecurity.org.uk, our website, because there's resources for all of this and more different ways of opening up discussion about how people feel about their security or insecurity. And just to end, I really want to encourage you that although it may feel impossible at the moment to make any headway in any of this with the sort of war readiness narrative, but I just want to tell you that recently I've been collating stories for a series on our blog called Cooperation for Sustainable Security. And it's really struck me that even things that we hear about that are coming out of the UN, they begin in communities. It's communities of people, of activists, of thinkers, of people dialoguing with each other around a problem that they want to see a solution to, that take that with the help of international lawyers and big civil society organisations. But it involves every level to get these changes happening, and so everything that we do is important. And I just wanted to end on that note. And Brian's here to, I think you stay in the groups? Yeah. Thank you.
Michael, a round of applause.
Joe, and to everybody who made their contribution. We're on the last roundup really at this stage. We're coming to the final stages of the conference. There's been so much heard, so much said, and when you go home you say, and I didn't get to see this, I didn't get to hear that. It's a pity I didn't meet this person. I know somebody on Friday even said, it often happens on Sunday morning that I meet somebody when we're saying goodbye, and I said I didn't even know they were there. I would have loved to have had the moment to sit and to chat with them, or to find out a little bit more about them. In the groups that we're in now, part of the job we have to do is to try and somehow craft a statement that comes out of the conference. And I thought the best way to do it might be just to remind us of one or two things that we might have heard over the weekend, just to jog our memory back the whole way back to Friday. So very quickly, the first thing I wanted to do, I suppose, was to thank Father Joe for the inspirational choice of Anne Farr to offer the homily yesterday, because it was Anne who said to us that we're not after just peace, but a just peace. If you remember Sister Mary Ann on Friday, she sat here with Katrina, and if you remember they had said it takes 2 nuns to replace Rowan Williams. They did a super job. But one of the very first things Mary Ann said was, what's bubbling up in you? And that was before we had all of the conference. But now that we've had the conference and you've attended your choice of workshops and you've listened to the speakers and the panellists, the question remains, what's bubbling up in you? And we're hoping in a few moments that we get that chance to articulate that in the form of a statement. If you remember back to Anne Peacey stood here and she opened the conference on Friday evening, and she told us that we have noticed a change in the tone of public and private discourse, and that it's not good. She urged us to become peace seekers. I had to think about that for a minute. But I was really struck by her invitation to reflect on what it means to be at peace. What does it mean to be at peace? And that one way to think of that will be to reflect, to rethink and to refocus. And somewhere in there was the instruction for ourselves as we began our work at this conference. And it's part of our work this morning to reflect, rethink and refocus. And I'm hoping that we can do this after all that we've heard. Katrina, if you remember on Friday, spoke of spoke of Jesus looking for the dignity in every person, and that this was the essence of non-violence, looking for the dignity in every person. She asked us to consider what breaks your heart, reminding us that what breaks our heart also breaks God's heart, and that we are searching for peace through justice, that there isn't a peace without justice. And very often the two words are used together, even the National Justice and Peace Network. Justice and peace, integrity of creation, justice and peace group. The two words come together. Katrina remind us that we don't discern alone, that we live our faith in a community, and that we should start with prayer. And that a can of red paint is as good an accessory as a handbag. She also reminded us that we can start something, that we should step into the gap, and that love, 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 and radical inclusion that Joe spoke of is definitely part of the answer. And that sometimes we must dare to cross the line. Even if it's hard, we must dare to cross that line. In several spaces we've heard a righteous anger. Even from the floor on Friday night we heard people say, I'm fed up with prayer services about peace. And somebody else from the back then asked, well, is peace an impossible reality for us? We were asked to reflect on, is it true that the security of a nation is more important than the dignity of an individual? That came through a couple of times, and again with Joe just now. I learned an important lesson about prayer. I learned that prayer is resistance, and that resistance is prayer. I had to think on that for a while. Katrina told me too, she said that, change not only can start with me, but it must start with me. But it doesn't always depend on me alone. I was very comforted by that it doesn't all depend on me. James was very honest on Saturday morning, if you remember, when he moderated the panel discussion, when he spoke of a genuine fear of being arrested, and he wouldn't be alone in that fear too. He also spoke about regretting not walking out of a conference or at a speech that was being made, and he kind of thought, I should have done that. But George very kindly, George White, I remember sitting there, very kindly reassured him and said, you know, sometimes leaving ends conversations. And important conversations with intentional listening, sometimes that's where we need to be, sometimes that's the encounter. And we have to strategically find those places of encounter. And that peace can come in the strangest of encounters, but it is an encounter we must seek, we must find them. I remember too the words that Katrina said at the Arms Conference when she was very much alone, kneeling in front of the poster and somebody leaned over and said, I fear you may be right, when she was making her protest. And in there I found some encouragement that somebody was recognising something was shifting somewhere. George explained how really that listening is part of the journey to peace. And at George's workshop, I kind of realised that listening sometimes is perhaps the most important part of talking. But that we all have something to say and that we all have something to offer. Bakani told us that we cannot do it all by ourselves. And that reminded me of what Katrina said, that it doesn't depend on me alone. And we heard from the floor about the need for conversion. When Bakani spoke, she talked about more hosting, attending learning circles, vigils, being open to taking part. And what really struck me about what she said, sometimes we have to find new ways to serve, to be in that space of encounter. She told us too that it's hard to hate up close. That told me also a little bit more about the value of encounter. And a lot of people saw that in the films, the listening to the heart films that were on view across the weekend. When I thought, what can I do? Does my action count? And some people said that, like, the action I take, does it actually count? And at one of the workshops, Sister Imelda said, well, just to let you know that whether you think your action counts or not, sometimes others who may have heard about your action later may be inspired by what you did, or may inspire others to build on what you have done. So don't ever think that your action isn't something that's worthwhile, even if you don't think it fixed the problem, it didn't fail. I also learned that we are encouraged to be hopeful in this Jubilee year, but allowed to be frightened. And in George's workshop again, I felt that call or that idea that we should never underestimate the power of being present, especially with those who disagree with you. And I saw that again in the films. Every person in this room has been touched by conflict, whether it's global wars, violence in your community, or the silent battles in our hearts. But peace begins when we remember our shared humanity. It's not the absence of noise. It's the presence of justice, of dignity, of compassion. It's not passive. It's not waiting for others to change. Peace is a verb. It's choosing inclusion over isolation, understanding over judgment, courage over silence. It's in how we speak. It's in how we lead, how we follow, how we include those on the margins. No single voice can define peace for all. But together we can create a statement that is more than words. It can be a declaration of hope, of vision, of commitment. When we listen to each other, not just to respond, but to understand, we're building peace in real time. Joe showed us that we could have dialogue with decision, encourage and include others and other voices, and challenging specific policies. We must challenge that model that, well, we have to be honest, business as usual is not working. The old systems, the tired arguments, the politics of division, they don't serve us, they don't protect us, and they certainly don't bring peace to those furthest behind. But we know something powerful. When we build peace, everyone benefits. Even those we don't see, and even those we don't hear. So what do we do now? We build a new narrative, one grounded in the common good and in common sense, one that refuses to accept a world where some lives are worth more than others. And this is where you come in. Ordinary people like you and I have extraordinary power. Together we can tip the scales in favour of peace. We can persuade, we can mobilise, we can amplify, we can repeat. Persuade, mobilise, amplify, repeat. This is how change happens. So today we begin with a call, one simple, powerful act, crafting a shared statement on peace. Not just a few lines on a page, but a declaration, a vision, a tool for connection. And then we'll spread it. We'll use every platform we have, whether it's digital, spiritual, social, cultural, to say peace is the power of us. We don't have to wait for leaders to grant it. I'm reminded of the prayer that Andrew read this morning when it said, how can we pray for peace half a world away? And that brings me back to Anne Farr yesterday, when she said we need to do what is right to restore human dignity. Put the common good of people as their top priority. And what really struck me was, just as we were about to go into the Our Father, I remember her saying, let us not turn peace into a slogan, while war remains the daily bread of the poor. So now back to Mary Ann. Mary Ann started us on Friday night and she said, what's bubbling up within us? And I've just given you a little bit of a flavour of what we heard, what we saw, what we listened to over the weekend. And the question that Mary Ann posed on Friday remains now. What is bubbling up within you again? And we want to take maybe 15 minutes to ask you to help craft a statement. We're not going to get it done. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask you maybe to think on what you heard and what might you like in a statement. And we might give you a page and we might collect them afterwards, so we will take some feedback, but we may not have time to get into the nuts and bolts of it. But if we can collect what you have written, then we will put together a statement and we will back it up with an article and we will share it on every platform we have. A statement that dares, a statement that provokes, a statement that counters, a statement that we want to make a strong statement in advance of next year's conference. So, that should take, I hope, about 15 minutes. So in the groups that you're in, if I ran around with a bit of paper, then maybe you might think, what might be the substance of our statement as we gather in the final moments of the 2025 towards a Just Peace conference. Okay, so I will do what Mary Ann did, and I will say, take 30 seconds in silence just to think on what's bubbling up in you. And if I can do an Olympic run around the room, I will put a page in every group, and by the time I'm out of breath, you can begin. Thank you all very much. Again, like the last time, we have a couple of roving mics, and we might again invite people maybe to just give us a little bit of a flavour of what came up for them in their discussion group. But what we will do before you all leave is we will gather up those pages that you have so that we don't miss out on any of the wisdom that came up within your group. So what we might do first of all is if there is somebody who's willing to start us off, I'm afraid there's no prize for starting us off. We have somebody here and somebody who will take this lady here first, and then we'll take this gentleman, Jude, I think his name next, yeah? And then after that, is there another hand there after that?
Right, we have 3 points. First, climate change is a crucial cause of violence, stroke wars, for example, migrations due to climate and conflict. It also adds to the carbon levels with its carbon emissions, which are huge and unreported. Second point, we need to recognise and promote support for international institutions, such as the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, institutions such as that, because this rule-based era, which most of us in this room have grown up with is currently under attack and crumbling, and we'll be the worse off if we don't support these institutions. Third point, it will be promoting an understanding of what security is and means in the UK and globally.
Thank you so much. Is there, and then Michael, if you give that to Jude, is there another person over here with their hand up ready to go then after that? Yeah. Jude, when you're ready, thank you so much.
Thank you. So we had our conversation amongst ourselves, and we came up with a few points. So I'll go straight to those. We defined that Jesus is peace, so we should. Life is unjust, so we should focus on Jesus' peace. Peace is human, so which is a person, so which is Jesus Christ. So let's think of that. We also believe in respecting all people, apply dignity and humanity towards everyone. We also spoke about making prayer our conscious goal in our conversations and journey towards peace, so that the light reflects on our inner self, so that the light can shine outwardly towards peace. We also said safeguarding should be the reason. I mean, we should not make safeguarding the reason of conflicting of borders, and focus on the future generation and how to encompass them into the journey towards peace. Another point we made was live fully and influence intentionally towards peace. Finally, we also touched on Gaza and saying we should try and remember the moral responsibilities. So not just Gaza, but every war going on in the world. Let's focus on our moral responsibilities. And finally, we are the church. So even if the church isn't very welcoming towards the journey towards peace, we should remember we all together are the church. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Jude. And there's somebody here, and is there somebody? Oh, we have there Chris down there, Michael next. So go ahead, here.
We collude with the state of our world because we do not shout out loudly enough. We need to give church leaders encouragement to speak out. We need to empower them to speak on our behalf. Conversion to non-violence.
Thank you indeed. Is there somebody else over this side then next? There's somebody down here in this room. Go ahead, Chris, when you're ready. Thank you indeed for that.
We had 3 points as well. Peace rests in first tackling poverty, disadvantage and disconnection. Get rid of inequality, balance the country, stop it being from south-centric. Get the church hierarchy to speak out on important issues to address the structure of injustice.
Thank you. We can hear some themes emerging. Michael, is somebody next there? And then go ahead, yeah. Yes, please. Thank you.
Well, we started off, is that working? Yeah.
Yeah,
We started off with the prayer and discernment. That should be at the beginning of the statement. What does God want from us and for us and the world? With God, nothing is impossible. Peace is possible. Over the weekend, people have felt rebirth, alive, being together, that solidarity. No peace without justice. Human dignity is paramount. So we use a lot of the issues that we've talked about this weekend: listening, get out of our comfort zones. The fear, I think another group has said, of the way the UK is moving, making criminals of people who are working for peace, calling them terrorists, making criminals of people who are working for the environment. That's going the wrong way. And a link to last year's conference, No One Left Behind, the link to the Sustainable Development Goals. If those goals are reached, peace will be possible, because everybody will have what they need for life. And they thought that the statement should include a link to Anne's sermon, and that we have a prayer for peace. We pray in church, Lord, bring peace to Gaza, bring peace here, bring peace there, but we don't mention justice in those prayers. It's just peace through justice.
Okay, thank you so much. You've got a lot said on all of that. That's very good indeed. And you're tying last year's conference and this year's conference together, and we heard a lot of the words from this year's conference in what you said. Thank you indeed. There was somebody else, the microphone. Yes, please.
Got lots of things, but I won't go through them all. But there are certain things: people and planet before power and state. Peace needs to be built. It is not just an absence. But Jesus calls us to build peace, which is an activity and a process. Another thing we discussed, where does our money go? We need to investigate that. Jesus gives us hope in the chaos of the world.
Thank you indeed, yeah. Have you an ex-customer for this? Somebody here too, Michael. Go ahead there, please, Liz. Thank you.
We looked at what we've thought about over the weekend, what's bubbling up, and we acknowledge that our whole weekend is about working towards a just peace. So what was bubbling up for us, and we thought, well, we need to get to a just peace through these things, and we want our statement to reflect it. We want to get to a just peace through active listening. We saw the importance of collaborative work. Justice and peace shouldn't be a secret society. We're wanting to be building networks both within the church and with other groups. And we also need our statement to reflect the reason that peace only comes when we have peace within ourselves.
Thank you, Liz. That's from quite a large group. We have somebody here, Michael, also. Thanks. And have you a new customer? There's a new customer up here, Andrew, I think. Go ahead, yes.
We also spoke about finding kind of the human dignity of every person and how important that was for working towards peace. We talked about thinking about peace within the context of justice and considering how peace is not truly peace without reconciliation and trust in each other. We also spoke about kind of the small things, talking about how locality is really important, community is really important, listening's really important. All of the big changes we want to see in the world begin internally within ourselves and then within our local community. So all of the justice we want to see within our world, it begins by enacting justice where we are within our own communities and then building it and taking it more outwards.
Thank you. You did that very well. Well done. Andrew, when you're ready.
So we did a bit of a breakdown, talking about what was bubbling up, and how we got enough points I could probably go and nail them to a door somewhere. I'll pick out three. Some people got that joke. Recognising the impact of our imperial history on current attitudes, on the sign of nuclear weapons. This one's been said before, we are the church, we don't have to be realistic. Our job is not to be realistic. We follow the countercultural Jesus and the God of the impossible. Recognising the personal cost of what we're being asked to do, whether that's through being arrested or in time and focus, but also the joy of community in working together. Acknowledging, similar point to the first, acknowledging our context of being empire, and the difficulty of talking liberation theology in that respect, calling for a recovery of respect for international law and institutions.
Okay, thank you. You covered quite a lot on that, Andrew. There are two more groups, I think, on this side. There's from there, and there's three. Okay, I think maybe we might be in trouble. I think there's another group down here. Yeah. Go ahead.
We came up with a few points. The first one was the dignity of human in creation. And then we talked about the culture of encounter and how important it is to connect across difference. We talked about that unity is possible, and that's the hope. The dream of social friendship. There was a lot of discussion about listening and how really important that is, and that listening changes hearts. And then we also talked about that for peace, patience is needed.
Thank you indeed for that. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, we came up with three things. To free people from their sense of isolation, helplessness and victimhood. To listen with an open mind and to look for common ground, and to become agents of hope.
Thank you, indeed. I think the group behind you is there Sue, is it?
That's right,
Yeah. And is there another group left that we haven't heard from? There's one group here. And then
Right.
I'd be in trouble if I don't stop then.
Okay, in the interests of getting through things quickly, we've got a whole page, so I'm just
thank
going
you,
to...
thank you, Sue. Page 1 is good enough, thank you. Yeah.
These are sort of quotes which really bubbled up for people. Your beloved sons and daughters of the God of peace, not of the empire of war. So we felt that was something really worth thinking about. And that powerful image of the people who were going to send to war when the older ones sat down.
Yeah.
And we felt that this demonstrated our responsibility as elders to work against this sort of thing. The importance of gospel values, and we're not doing things in our own strength, and how to use our gifts of privilege. So I'll finish there.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you just for reading page 1 of your book. And I think, is there somebody here? Yes, go ahead.
Well, some of our points will be echoing what's been said already. We started with challenge the creep of militarisation and militarism in the country and start to prepare for peace. Recognise the dignity of all people and expose the arms trade and develop alternatives for those involved through a just transition to use their expertise for the benefit of the planet and people.
Thank you indeed. I think that's us. Hold on to the page, don't lose the page. We're going to take the page from you. Sue, hold on to your whole book. We want it all. We had an AGM last night, so I'll just say what's going to happen with that. We're going to try and take what you said, distill it into a statement and an article that will be published in the next newsletter, in the hope that not just us, but you too will share what's come from this conference as we head towards the next conference, the NJPN next year, where we hope you will go and tell even more people to come and do this. But at our AGM last night, there was a suggestion that perhaps the NJPN might make a statement with relation to what's happening in Gaza and Palestine at the moment. So we thought about it and we thought actually that's a good thing to do, but how do we do it in such a way that that we will do it right without rushing it? So I'm going to ask Anne, if Anne wouldn't mind coming up, because Anne has had a little bit of time to think on how we might do this as part of the NJPN, and with your support we might be able to do something over the next few days that we will get out to. So Anne will explain the next steps. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks very much. But in retrospect, I just want to say something I forgot yesterday. Some of you will have noticed that yesterday was the feast of St. Anne and St. Joachim, and it often gets lost. And I would just like to wish, as we celebrated today's liturgy last night, I'd like to wish every other Anne, Hannah, and whoever else has any connotations of that name in the room a very happy feast day, and let's celebrate it today. Just to say that some people have asked about actions. There are some here that have been provided by Pax Christi. If you would like to sign the Campaign Against the Arms Trade petition, it's on the table at the back, please do that. And there is a joint open letter to the high-level conference on Palestine, which is at the UN. If there is anybody here who can sign that on behalf of your own organisation, it's not a personal names things, it's organisations. If you can sign on behalf of your organisation, then please come and say so, and we'll give you the link for that. The deadline is 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, so, you know, it's all of these things are always very tight. And of course, if you have the link and you've got somebody else who can sign it, you know, you can tell them when you get home. And you can still write the names of the children who have been killed in Gaza on the paper and put them in the jar, and those will go back to Liverpool for their prayer service. As far as as Brian has mentioned, the proposal from Joe last night at the AGM was that we do make this statement specifically on Gaza. And we thought that one of the ways, rather than try and do something now when it would be overwhelming to do, that we would put together in the next couple of days a statement which would express our condemnation and our abhorrence of what we have seen and heard happening. That we would support and endorse some other really good statements that have been made, like the World Council of Churches and the Quakers and Church of Scotland and things like that, and give links to those, and that we would make a limited number of requests about what we would be demanding of people, like an immediate and permanent ceasefire, immediate access to aid distributed by UNRWA to everybody in Gaza, and of course an arms embargo from by the UK, and an embargo on the training of the IDF military and military surveillance, and looking at international law. But it won't be long, because we need to make it succinct, and that this would be directed at both politicians and our own church leaders. So if people are happy for us to do that, we'll do that, and it can go to the NJPN executive, and they can do whatever is necessary with that. So, should we ask if people happy with that? Are you happy with that?
Once again, we will thank Anne for all she has done and the contribution she has made to this conference. So thank you indeed, Anne, for all that you have done.